My name is Sebastian Kortmann. I've been a professor with the Amsterdam Business School for around 12, 13 years now, and in charge of the Amsterdam MBA for 8 years. And yeah, so talking about the Amsterdam MBA a little bit, we have three different types of tracks. We have the general management track, we have a healthcare track, and we have a specific AI track as part of our broader MBA portfolio. I would even go further and say that strategy innovation are subject that would also differentiate very good MBA programs from other MBA programs. So why is that the case? I mean, when you look at the way MBA programs are designed, you want to make sure that you really balance this trade-off between, on the one hand side, making sure that the students learn about frameworks, tools, things that they can basically apply the very next day. So anything that's of true benefit for them in the short run. But at the same time, and that's also where the more academic, scientific perspective comes in, which is then closely related to the strategic perspective. You also want the students to think about not only business challenges, but also broader challenges, societal issues in a broader sense, and think more long-term, be able to integrate different perspectives and apply the knowledge from different knowledge areas. And of course, it's more intangible, it's way more complex. It requires the students to develop these long-term plans. And I think MBA programs which bring in this perspective as well, that allows students to include or integrate the perspectives from different knowledge areas or integrate the different demands and interests from different stakeholders in a strategic and innovative way. Those are the programs that really stand out, because that's what eventually makes the difference for the students. And this comes, of course, through conversations with their fellow students in the classroom. When you have a nicely diversified program that we have, for example, we don't want to have any dominant group in our program. We want to make sure that there are many different functional, cultural, industry types of backgrounds in the classroom. And if you're able to integrate these different perspectives, and that's what you learn on the way, I think you develop a very good strategic thinking type of capability that allows you to look at problems in a different way. And then you really go beyond, and that's why I was saying that it's that it is a differentiating factor. Then you go beyond simple YouTube videos. You go beyond content that can be applied the very next day, although that's very valuable in itself. Of course, so let's say that there are different ways of how to make students aware of what's important from a strategic perspective, to teach them the capabilities that are required. And of course, to start with, it's the courses. You always would have basic strategy courses in your MBA curriculum. These are competitive strategy. This is corporate strategy. We also have purpose-driven strategy as one very specific way of looking at strategy. So that's I would say the baseline, and which is definitely a requirement. And it's great if you have professors that are very experienced in this field, such as Henk Volbeda, that we luckily have in our program as a competitive strategy teacher. But then it goes beyond this. So, and I mean, you want to teach the students to think critically, to look at conflicts, challenges from multiple perspectives. And we have another course that's called Actualysis. It's kind of it's a new course that we developed together with one of our professors, Doron, who was a VP at Liberty Global. And what we do here is that we say, let's look at recent events in the political arena. Let's look at things that are going on in the broader world out there. And let's look at it from different, not only business-related perspectives, but also from many other surrounding perspectives, and try to solve this issue and bringing the different interests and demands from the different stakeholders, and look at it strategically. How can we address those challenges and conflicts in the long run? And then, as mentioned earlier, what's also part of it is how you set up the classroom. And what we intentionally support is that we have or create these highly diversified classrooms to bring students together from very many different backgrounds so that they work together on business issues. And that by itself is all about strategic thinking. You want to be able to break down complex problems into more simple ones, using the pyramid principle from McKinsey, for example. You want to make sure that you are able to resolve those conflicts in the decision-making processes. You want to make sure that you look at the problems from a very analytical point of view, which is why we have a course on strategic analytics, for example. So that in the end, again, we develop leaders, decision makers that are able to deal with conflicts, to look at challenges from a very analytical point of view, to integrate different perspectives from the different stakeholders, from the different parties that might be involved in a conflict, in a difficult situation, and then come up with a solution that might not solve the problem immediately, but let's say defines a clear pathway towards the solution in the future through innovation, for example, through the development of new approaches, which are often required in more complex and dynamic business worlds, which create problems that we have never seen before. I think here we have to distinguish between things that we can measure during their studies and measure aspects, or let's say, or look at feedback from the students after, or once they are 3-4 years out of the program. Within the program, we have, for example, this our in-company project, and the in-company project is a big part of the program because it lasts 2 to 3 months at the end of their studies, where students can work on any business problem, any business challenge in any industry, in any business environment that they want, to apply the knowledge that they've acquired in the program. And I think that's the most significant and biggest part of where those different knowledge areas come together, and the students are really put into the position that they have to solve one very specific business challenge, maybe for a startup, maybe for a corporation, maybe within their own organization if they're part-time students, where this strategic thinking is applied. And it doesn't matter whether it's a marketing related topic, whether it's a finance related project, but it's really all about bringing these different perspectives together and solve a problem for one specific organization or company, regardless of what it is. It's a very good question, because which is a strategic problem in itself, because with this project, you would have to satisfy 2 different types of stakeholders, and the product could be completely different. And we had interesting situations in the past. For example, we even had in-company projects that brought up so many innovative ideas and were so radical from the corporate's point of view that the students would have got a very bad grade from the companies, because it was perceived as too innovative, too far beyond what's possible. So you have situations like these, and of course we have to make sure that in the end there's a fair process, and that it's also convenient and easy to understand for the students how the in-company project is graded, what are the criteria that are applied. And that's why we only grade it internally from our perspective, but using a clear structure of evaluation criteria, which cover the practicality of the solution. So a couple of years ago, we changed the nature of this in-company project from being a more academic, theory-driven type of thesis to a more applied one. The focus is not, so instead of focusing on the theoretical contribution to the potential research gaps that are addressed as in a traditional master's thesis, now the main criteria of the grading process are related to the recommendations the students make based on the frameworks that they've acquired, are related to the extent to which they have helped the company solving the problems, are related to anything that's tangible for the companies, for the organizations that they work with. So in that sense, they have at the same time a clear process with one group of stakeholders that they have to satisfy, but on the other side, the way that they're graded is what the main part of the grading is really related to the applicability, to the value that it creates for the organizations. Yes and no. So I think if you have these capabilities that I was referring to before, right? So this ability to break down complex problems, to integrate different perspectives, to prioritize different solutions, to look at the business problem from a broader perspective. So those are all great capabilities which would qualify you for a consulting type of role. And of course, many students are interested in pursuing a consulting career afterwards. And in that sense, so yes, there is a close connection between the two, but you could also argue so that it prepares the students to start their own businesses. If you have this quality that you can integrate different perspectives, that you look at business opportunities in the broadest sense, that you're really good at prioritizing different business opportunities, that you have a very good understanding of nailing down business problems and coming up with new solutions for it, which is the innovative part in it, then why not starting your own business? So I think it's more of a general capability that you acquire that can be applied to so many different ways, and that could be described as a strategic thinking type of capability. Yeah. Maybe going back to the question of what is strategy. So strategy is all about answering the question of or defining what's your competitive advantage, what makes you different as an MBA program, as a company, as a person, whatever it is. And so something that we really try to highlight also in our information evenings is the way we look at our MBA and how we differentiate is really by making sure that we are leveraging the broader ecosystem, not only of Amsterdam, but the business school, the University of Amsterdam, the different corporate partnerships, the startup partnerships in the startup village, and integrating all these aspects into the student journey, which then of course on the other side should be also, and that's how we think an MBA should be designed, very personalized. So making sure that if we open up on the one hand side take this broader approach and try to incorporate the broader ecosystem of Amsterdam, then it should also be tailored to the individual needs of the students. Then you also want to sit down with the students at the very beginning of their student journey to understand how we can connect them to this environment. So, and another phrase or one way of looking at strategy is connecting the dots. And so one of the things that we emphasize in our value proposition is that we try to connect the individual students to the different players' knowledge sources that they're really interested in, and this means develop a career strategy together with them from the very beginning. So what the kind of balance that you want to strike is between strategy as, I think, the broadest way of how you can look at management decision-making, but then also making sure, and then on the other side, having the different aspects of strategy. Strategy from a purpose-oriented point of view, strategy from a pure competitive point of view, where you answer the question of how a business unit, one organization competes against others. Then we also have corporate strategy, which is all about strategies related to managing the portfolio of an organization of different business units. How do you design it? To what extent do you want to integrate different business units? To what extent should they compete by themselves and have a rather differentiated approach? then you also want to, and I explained how important this analytical thinking is, making decisions based on numbers, based on data, for which we have the strategic analytics class. So yes, you're right. There are different strategy classes, and of course, to a certain extent, they overlap, which is natural. But I think that the real benefit really comes from, again, integrating the different perspectives on strategy. And in one of your questions before, I said, of course, you have the direct ways of measuring the success of strategy education, but there are also some measures or some forms of feedback that you collect afterwards. And it's kind of interesting when you speak to alumni or students that are out of the program for some time. I think that's also the time when they realize how important the strategic thinking is, to be able to speak to different people from other functions in an organization and be part of this strategic decision-making process, where they understand how important this long-term thinking is, or this ability to look at problems from a broader big picture type of perspective, which is not so immediate during the program. Of course, you have exams, you have classes, and you have so many things on your agenda that you don't really realize the value from the strategic thinking. And it seems to be general, sometimes it seems to be theoretical, but the long-term value is truly there. And that's what you cannot measure effectively in the short run, right? No doubt. So you can provide students with different frameworks, ways of addressing those complex problems. So whether, BCG matrix is relatively old, but it's still used. SWOT analysis is also super old, but still used in many instances. So you have, just to name a couple of familiar examples, so you still have all these different frameworks that can be taught. But, and that's why I like the MBA programs so much, because it's not only about explaining students how this works in a passive type of way, but also allowing students to apply these frameworks, to really adopt this way of thinking, to maybe even be able to develop their own frameworks, which could be part of the in-company project. Because and this is then exactly this process that you want them to go through, is that if you have successfully taught the frameworks or this way of how strategic thinking works, students should be able to develop their own frameworks by narrowing down complex problems, for example, down to the one or two most important variables which influence this decision, and then develop their own frameworks, develop their own ways of addressing the problem, their own ways of prioritizing the different solutions to the problem. And then you can also get rid of the frameworks that you've learned in class, because you have this ability to develop these frameworks yourself, which again make you very attractive for the consulting world, which make you very attractive for any strategic, any leadership role. And I think that's the kind of process that you want to see being covered. For a program that takes a very personalized approach to the MBA program with a high degree of customization within the context of the broader Amsterdam business ecosystem, especially the University of Amsterdam as a highly ranked university in the world. And so what really stands out is, going back to one of your questions before, we try to connect the dots for you in Amsterdam.